Hello class and welcome to this Shatterhand NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and full-on confessional mode right here at the top of this class. I have never played this game ahead of this class. Never played Shatterhand. This was a request and was happy to honor it. Very happy to honor it. It turned out after the fact because this is a great game. Maybe one of those hidden gems. I'm not sure if I was one of the few people who missed this one, but with a library of roughly 700 games, talking the NES right here, you're bound to miss some. Everybody's got some blind spots, I guarantee that. And this is one of mine, but very, very solid action platforming game right here. Very difficult as well. This is a tough game. The platforming's tough, the bosses are tough, and the only thing which makes it a little more manageable is the items, which are extremely important in your survival in this game. And there's even a novel twist on how they work to create different power-ups. So Blaze's items guide today is going to be extremely useful. I'm not joking about the difficulty though. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Shatterhand for the NES a 9 out of 10, which on the frustration scale equates to writhing on the floor, cursing in tongues, certainly on some of the later stages, certainly on some of the later bosses. But don't worry, we got the keys to get you through this one. Fluff had some interesting facts, and also very important is Gary's role as the boss guru with tips on every boss in this game. So let's run the intro and get into this Shatterhand NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. Alright, as we begin a new game, let's take a look at the controls for Shatterhand for the NES. Jump with A, attack with B. Note that your fourth punch in a combo is twice as powerful, and you'll keep throwing these more powerful punches until you stop hitting your target. So, important to mention. Down is duck and also activates the power-up stations, which Blaze will talk about. And you can hold down and hold A to have your robot lift you straight up in the air very slowly. It's not useful at all, in my opinion. And then you can tap B to toss your robot as well, like we show right here. Just, don't do it. But anyway, and pause with start. We'll get our robot in just a second as we take a look at the Briggs notes now for Shatterhand. First, BAB for the win. Blaze is going to talk about the different combinations of these beta and alpha symbols that we're picking up right here. Secondly, if you pick up the same 3 symbols in a row that you picked up last time, you'll get temporary invincibility and you'll do a lot more damage on your attacks. In the same vein, be pragmatic about when you pick up certain items to have that invincibility when you come up on a boss. And same thing with healing stations, just kind of use them wisely because they will disappear when you're done with them. And lastly, of course, I alluded to how difficult the bosses were in the opening, so use Gary's boss beaters. He's got good tips on all the bosses we're going to take on, but first things first, we just picked up our first combo, 3 betas in a row, and with information on that, let's go to Blaze.
Alright, beta. I feel like I'm rushing here, like I'm in Revenge of the Nerds or something. The robot throws a single powerful grenade with beta, which arcs down. Very powerful, but you gotta be accurate with this one for it to really count.
Good call, thank you Blaze. Yeah, in these early stages we'll be giving you a nice kind of overview of the different ones, be showing them off. And later we'll prioritize what Blaze and I both consider to be the best combination in that BAB, the beta, alpha, beta, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Right now we're gonna go for 3 betas once again to go with that second Briggs note of repeating the last combo that we picked up so we can show you that invincibility. So because we repeated beta while we still had our robot, we get this temporary invincibility. As we take damage, we lose seconds on it, but first boss, Gary.
It's Scary Gary's Boss Beaters.
Alright, Shatterhand has a number of difficult bosses in it. This isn't one of them. Balzire, you just gotta get close and start punching as you're ducked, right in front of this boss. Every now and then he'll jump up against in the corner and shoot some sparks down, just jump over those. Sometimes he'll fire shots in the corner, which will bounce back. If you're close to him, it probably won't even hit you to where you need to move, so be careful when he jumps back down, but other than that, just get in close, duck, keep punching, you'll take him down.
Thank you, Gary. And we got some flashes in this game as we take down some bosses. Just mentioning that, be aware there's going to be more of those. But yeah, we didn't quite need to use that strategy on that boss there. There's a sort of a boss rush later in the game, so we'll have a chance to fight him using that strategy, but still an easy out no matter how you take him on. Get low, punch, or use the invincibility attack like we had there. But you can see we kind of have like a Mega Man style stage select. We're going to go top left. And while we do, let's get an overview on the items of this game with Blaze.
Alright, let's cover the basic items you can find from killing enemies or revealing blocks here in Shatterhand. First, we have the small and the big coins, which are worth 50 and 200 gold respectively. We have the bag of gold. You can hit this for gold coins. Do one of those more powerful punches, you get 200 per punch. So keep that in mind. Once you get that combo going, get extra cash right there. And then we have the alpha and the beta blocks. These are the two building blocks for unlocking all of the different robots and kind of secondary attacks you have in this game. So be careful which one you pick up. You can punch it to reverse to the opposite symbol if you want one or the other, so keep that in mind, but there you go.
Good call, Blaze, and also want to mention if you punch the symbol enough to just keep swapping it back and forth, eventually it will just turn into a coin for you, so keep that in mind. Try not to punch it too often. Just gonna jump over that, guys. Sometimes it's discretion the better part of valor. You'll find a number of these boxes sometimes randomly will contain an explosive, a grenade, in which case if you see it, just hop away as quickly as possible. Usually not too dangerous, just make sure you are aware. Also note that those pod dropping enemies, the ones that are dropping little flying enemies at us, they have a certain amount of range off screen where they can still throw those at us. Just keep aware of that as we get our Alpha for the first time. Blaze?
Alright, Alpha brings out our robot pal and he throws a yo-yo-like ball with a limited range. Not my favorite, not all that recommended.
Thank you very much, Blaze. Yeah, not our favorite, but in the interest of showing you a variety of the different robots you can get here in Shatterhand, at least early on while the levels are still relatively easier. Go ahead and doing that. But let's bring in Blaze again for an overview on the platforms now in Shatterhand.
Alright, there are three types of kind of power-up stations you'll find sprinkled throughout the game here in Shatterhand. So first, for 100 gold, if you push down on this one, you get a punch upgrade so that you do 2 times the damage. That is until you get hit 3 times. So hold on to this as long as possible. I like that color too, that color change, little wardrobe swap. Secondly, very, very useful is for 300 gold. This refills your health. Push down on this one to top off your health on demand. And then lastly, very rare in this game, only 1 or 2 instances of this. For 2,000 gold, you can get a 1-up.
Thank you, Blaze. Very expensive, but you can argue it's worth it in the right circumstances. It can take some getting used to figure out how to climb on these fences, especially when you have enemies, but time for the second boss, Gary.
Boss beater.
Right, the Pogoborgs, also very easy. Just follow the left one to the wall, duck, and start punching. You'll take him down very quickly and send him into second phase, which is kind of a slow-moving snake where you gotta hit the head. Just avoid him, get those punches when you can. You can actually set it up so that it just circles you, beneath you, through the floor, and then back again. If you punch all the different scales, they can't hurt you anymore, but again, all we really want to do is focus our attacks on the head to take him down. Good luck.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, if you get in just the right spot, you can have it basically circling you and knocking out all the little components that do damage to you. But anyway, Area B cleared. Moving right along. Get extra points, you could see, for the amount of life that we had left over at the end. Right there. Like, it feels kind of cinematic. Also feels kind of like a Ninja Gaiden moment right there. the moment we always meme in all of our classes on the Ninja Gaiden series, which you can check out via the link, the playlist in the description for every single class we've ever covered here on Video Games 101. But now with info on Alpha, Alpha, Beta, Blaze.
All right, with Alpha, Alpha, Beta, we get the robot laser, which fires across the entire screen, which I like. You can slightly change the aiming of that laser with up or down on the D-pad. The only thing I don't like about this is that you get one on the screen at a time, and it takes a while for it to kind of recharge to get that second shot off, so not ideal if you have an enemy bearing down on you and you need to get that shot off right away.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. There's a few moves like that in this game, a few different robots that have that kind of ability, or lack thereof, I suppose, better said in this case. Not a fan, but again, level's not too difficult still at this point in the game, so give you a little range. You can see that the robot, when it just hits an enemy, it will go ahead and do some damage to that enemy while taking damage itself. See, obviously when it flashes, it's about to go, so we can't make use of the invincibility if we lose our robot before we repeat that combination, so go ahead and go to something new, perhaps BAB, which again Blaze is going to talk about a little bit later, but you'll see why it's so good relative to many of these other moves. But yeah, that's a good excuse to reset and try something new. That's just, again, also what we recommend after playing this game many times is the BAB. Maybe you're a fan of the laser, but you can see we took a little bit too much damage there, our robot. And he disappeared. The robot, very, very important late in the game with certain bosses in particular, which Gary's going to mention, but at some stages in the game, late in the game, you honestly want to prioritize taking damage yourself over your robot, which admittedly isn't always easy to do because the robot is tied to your movement. You know, you turn left and the robot swings over to the other side of you and vice versa, so they have a couple sneaky grenades right there. Another good rule, which didn't make the Briggs notes, is to not let yourself get overrun by enemies as we get the power upgrade right here. Again, take too many hits and we lose it, as Blaze mentioned. And ABA, Blaze?
Alright, Sweden's favorite combination, Alpha, Beta, Alpha. The robot swings a very powerful but very limited range sword. It's kind of difficult to get your robot in position to get that sword to make contact, so not my favorite, but again, it's very powerful.
Yeah, that goes back to kind of what I was just saying about how it's kind of difficult to aim your robot where you want them to be in most situations. So it's hard enough sometimes just making sure your robot's not taking damage and keeping them out of harm's way. Very difficult to get them to aim that sword in just the right spot as well. If you can make contact, like Blaze mentioned, very powerful, but just as soon go with something which you don't need quite the same accuracy to make the most of. And there's some other moves that are like that here in this game, so don't like these guys. They take a ridiculous amount of hits, especially if you don't have the punch upgrade, or you had it and you lost it. Might just, sometimes just take the hit, go right through them. Thankfully, we won't have to deal with them too much, but anyway, Gary?
Boss beaters.
Alright, the Cyborgape, if the instruction manual is to be believed. You want to stay on the ground and then punch when that boss reaches the bottom. Don't jump, otherwise it gets a little more complicated than it needs to be. Just stay on the ground, let him come down to you. Stay close to avoid those projectiles. And then he's about to transition. Just run and jump as he moves from one side to the other. Reposition yourself, getting close and punching. And most of his attacks will miss you. He'll just try his rushing through you. Jump over it, you'll take him down.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, that might be the last straightforward and relatively easy boss here in Shatterhand, unfortunately. If you're thinking, Professor, yeah, the first half of these bosses haven't seemed too bad. What are you complaining about? Just wait. We'll get there, starting with the next one. And we're just hitting the corners here. We went top left, we went top right. So now we're just going to go down to the bottom left. Got our forest level right here, although the levels themselves don't always reflect what we see from that little card. You can see the trees in the background here and those towers. Very important here is to bank yourself a little bit of cash before you go deeper, and you can get that by, well, at chance from a number of enemies. But yeah, you want to bank at least 100 ideally for the punch upgrade, which is upcoming. It's extremely important in this level. Again, just getting those combos in, and now we got our 100. So we're in good shape there, so let's backtrack now and grab it from this platform. Thankfully, the screen doesn't lock up in terms of, you scroll too far to the right so you can't backtrack. It doesn't happen in this game. Sure, you can sometimes... We want to preserve this as long as possible, by the way, this punching upgrade. As Blaze mentioned, doubles the amount of damage, which we're dishing out right here. Especially good when we get those combos in. And we got BBA, Blaze.
All right, Beta Alpha, the robot pulls out a flamethrower which stacks damage, which sounds good in theory. You can adjust the trajectory of those flames kind of awkwardly with the D-pad. Takes some getting used to. The problem with this is getting it to fire when you want it to. There's a bit of a delay every time you need to restart it, and it doesn't always align with the punches you're trying to make at the same time. If you have enemies coming at you, you really can't combine these two. At a distance it's alright, but I just assume have one of the other moves.
Yeah, flamethrower is not too bad, but yeah, as Blaze mentioned, it can be difficult getting it to fire when you want in a high pressure situation. Like right now, pretty calm, just one enemy. Granted, he's throwing some very frustrating projectiles at us. You can kind of see what the strategy is, basically. Every time you punch him, he'll respond with a little counter of his own, but if you're quick enough, you can get in a nice rhythm without him firing any projectiles at you. Yeah, you can see sometimes it's very difficult to keep your robot out of harm's way. Most of the time when you're a little deep within a level, money's not an issue. Tend to collect a fair bit. This is where the flamethrower is nice, actually, or most of your robot moves with any kind of projectile. The laser works well there. A few others will work well there. We're gonna grab the BAB before too long here, now that we're getting into some of the most difficult stages and bosses in the game. We'll still bring in Blaze to cover some of the other moves that you can pick up, but mind these fans here. There's a very tight window. You'll notice when you punch something, especially when you're being blown by that fan, you'll get knocked back a little bit, so just gotta find that sweet spot between the spikes on the left and being too close to the fan on the right. So as we're about to plunge into the water here, you can go to the left to get yourself a punch upgrade for 100. And there's also an extra life to be had here if you've got the cash on you at this point. But while we're going through this part, let's bring in Fluff for our first Fluff fact about Shatterhand.
Shatterhand is a 1991 NES title developed by Natsume Co. and published internationally by Jalico. Drawing inspiration and borrowing conventions from a number of other platformers of its day, like Mega Man Stage Select and repeating of bosses late in the game, what feels like Batman's Close Combat, Super Mario World's cage grabbing, and plenty of other influences, while working in its own unique mechanic of piecing together 8 different abilities via power-up tokens, Shatterhand is a very challenging but very satisfying action platformer. In addition to being released on the Famicom and NES, Shatterhand was one of the many titles featured on Nintendo's multi-ROM arcade cabinet, the Play Choice 10, which allowed players to choose from a selection of 10 games to demo them for a limited amount of time, which could be extended by inserting additional coins. The Play Choice 10 served to both promote multiple games at once while maintaining arcade revenue.
Yeah, we've referenced the Play Choice 10 in a few classes in the past. I never saw this one on a Play Choice 10, I have to say. It's a good idea to take out these enemies before you try going up here. clearing them out just to make your landings a little bit softer. Don't have to worry about them quite as much. Take out these little mines as well. Different enemies and projectiles. You can see how tricky it is to aim your flamethrower, alternating between left and right directions just to reposition, and especially when you're trying to hit an enemy which is below or above you, that could be very difficult, but it's very effective when you just have a stationary enemy who's easy to dodge, like we had just there. Not as good in a higher pressure situation. So we're gonna go over here and get our health back up first. Be careful with these jumps. I'm avoiding that particular crate right there just because it has another letter, and I want to save this for when we get to the boss, actually, who is coming up, and I'm trying to keep this flamethrower if possible to give myself an advantage with the invincibility. Highly recommended here, and there's a lot of opportunities to grab yourself the letters here, so yeah, grab the last one. We have one right here before the boss, so get some invincibility and throw it back to Gary.
Boss beaters.
Harptune, you should probably have some invincibility at this point, because there's a lot of power-ups stacked around here like the professor showed, but that makes this a lot faster. Generally, just stay near the middle and jump, get a few shots in as the boss hovers, and you'll knock him back. Just keep this up. Jump over him when they kind of go low with their little sword move or whatever they do. And just repeat this from side to side to stay in the middle, punch him back, knock him back. Again, if you have the invincibility type move, then this will go a lot faster like we show.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, this one's not too bad compared to a couple that we got coming up, or the last few bosses in this game, but still. Any chance you can go into a boss fight with that invincibility, like the Briggs note said, like Gary mentioned right there, very important to do, so. We're moving on to the penultimate area now, Area E in the bottom right. So again, that started out as a forest level and we ended up in the water, so this looks like a tunnel. We'll probably end up on a mountain. We'll see. Love that. I'm gonna say sunset right there. Sunset, it's golden hour here in Shatterhand. Another instance where they give you that punch upgrade early on in the stage. Not quite as vital that you get it in this stage as it was in the last one, but if you want to go back and grab it, go right ahead. I find that I oftentimes lose it with these giant boulders dropping in from the sky. Kind of difficult to avoid. You can get them to kind of tease them, lure them out, bait them. You can see we're working on our first BAB, the Beta Alpha Beta, and you'll see why we recommend it. And yeah, from this stage in the game, I pretty much recommend that you exclusively target the Beta Alpha Betas. Blaze will talk about why once we get it. You see what I mean? We have plenty of cash right now. 1,200. We're still in the early stages of this level right here. Top off your health. And as we're coming up on our beta, let's get some information on it from Blaze.
Alright, my move of the game, if you will. Beta Alpha Beta. Your robot throws multiple flaming discs, which kind of boomerang and can be used to hit different enemies on the screen in different spots. If you're moving around, it can be very useful to hit some difficult to reach enemies. Just remember, Beta Alpha Beta, BAB for the win. You cannot go wrong with this move.
Good call, Blaze. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's very, very crucial for hitting some enemies in tough to reach spots, which saves you from putting yourself in danger, which is always a good thing. As you can see right there, we don't need to worry about climbing first or anything like that. Just throw some discs and let them hit this guy for us. Very useful for allowing us also to preserve our punch upgrade, which we have right here. Which in a game called Shatterhand, where you're basically punching the entire game, that is your one move, essentially. Yeah, pretty important that your punches be as powerful as possible. That's a lot of P's right there. Glad we got our pop screen to block the plosives. Alright, I'll stop. game kind of makes me feel like it's the equivalent, the punch equivalent of Kickmaster for the NES, another game which we did a semi-recent class on, which I didn't have a lot of experience with coming into that game. But yeah, two very solid platformers, which each are doing their own things. But yeah, that's a game based around kicking enemies. This is a game based around punching enemies. Both very worth your time, if you ask me, in terms of somewhat hidden gems in the action platforming genre here on the NES. You can see BAB working for us right here. If you get too close to these things, they start coming at you, so just use the distance. As you can see, where we got the gravity reversing on us. Fluff mentioned sort of the other influences, the conventions from other games. Mentioned Mega Man specifically. This kind of has a feel like Gravity Man stage, working, upside down. Granted, I think this game came out a year before Mega Man 5, but anyway. But yes, just keep putting the distance between yourself and the enemies and using the BAB as we show. And yeah, mind the flames, obviously. Give yourself a little room to lure this guy over. But while we preserve our BAB for as long as possible, let's bring in Blaze to talk about another combination which we will not be picking up since we're going BAB for the remainder of this Shatterhand NES walkthrough, and recommend you do the same. But yeah, Blaze, what are we not getting?
All right, Beta Alpha Alpha is the worst combination and move, in my opinion. The robot throws a ball which attaches to surfaces, and it's just not that useful, not practical, not gonna hit a lot of enemies. Avoid Beta Alpha Alpha at all costs.
Yeah, it's hot garbage, and yeah, it's also just one potential tile away from Beta Alpha Beta, so that could you could easily go from what you think is going to be the best pickup in the game to the worst if you accidentally pick up an alpha in place of that beta late there in your cycle. But anyway, as we continue to battle our way through the gravity bending nature of this stage right here, let's bring in Fluff for some context as to what's going on here in Shatterhand. Fluff, what's the story?
Shatterhand is set in the now not-so-distant future of 2030, when a group of military renegades called Metal Command are led by General Gus Grover, big Sesame Street fan there, who wants to conquer the world via an army of cyborg soldiers. We play as Steve Herman, a Bronx-based police officer who loses both arms during a battle with Metal Command. The Law and Order Regulatory Division, or LORD, hooks Steve up with cybernetic arms, which gives him the codename Shatterhand and the ability to punch the crap out of everything and everyone in Metal Command which stands in his way. If only they could have made those arms just a little bit longer, Professor.
Very much agree, thank you, Fluff. Yeah, if we could have like bionic commando length arms, that would be fantastic. Oh well. I think if we were the last hope for humanity, just trying to lure this guy over, I think if we... There we go. Just gotta jump over a little bit. Again, just trying to get him close enough so that we can not punch it, but just get our little discs in to inflict the damage here. Sometimes that is the best strategy, is, as I mentioned, just kind of taking enemies out before they overwhelm you on the screen or put you in a trapped position where you don't have room to react to them in the best way. You can see how this particular one right here explodes when you do enough damage. Just want to make sure when you're getting close, just throw that last one. Unfortunately, our robot took a hit right there, but this is another instance where invincibility is huge with this next boss. So I highly recommend that you get your double BAB right there. And you can see we're a little worse for wear in the health department. Gary?
Boss beaters. Alright, starting to get into the very tough bosses. Gravitus. Avoid the fire pits, first off, on the right side, because the boss can adjust the gravity so you're on the top or on the bottom very quickly, and you don't want to end up in that fire. So kind of stay on the left half of the screen. Keep your distance and just get those hits in when you can. Just, again, being wary of those gravity changes. And, yeah, when they use that projectile ring, just keep your distance so there's more space to thread that needle. Repeat this process, eventually you'll take him down. Good luck.
Good call, Gary. Yeah, you could see we were just prioritizing getting to the boss as quickly as possible with that invincibility, and then just kind of finishing off with the BAB from a distance. That was an instance where we definitely had to prioritize our own health over the robot, seeing as we had one last bit of health to give right there. Choice is pretty obvious now, with only one level left to pick right here in the middle. Going to Area F. Some of the toughest platforming in the game right here. This first area is very choreographed. This is the strategy I recommend. Banking some cash early on. Watch out for the falling explosives. Generally have time to react right there, but we want to stock up on our BAB early on here. And you can run through, but this guy existing right here doesn't really give you time to react and get the beta that you want at the start. So take a second, lure him out to the left, and take him down to get that beta in peace. Grab the alpha at the bottom right there. Or again, make it an alpha by just giving it a punch. And then we're going to drop down here to get our beta. Invincibility is practically a necessity for the boss that we have at the end of this stage. Gary's going to have some tips, but I know he's going to recommend that as well. And again, BAB failing that. So, very tough out either way. Invincibility is going to make it a lot more manageable, and the more time you can leave on the clock, the better. So we'll point out where the power-ups are there at the end of that stage. This is another instance where you don't want these guys to get on top of you. Take them out one by one, just kind of lure them out one at a time. Avoid the flames right there with a well-placed jump right at the edge. Well-timed jump. Again, another instance where we can save ourselves from being in a much more dangerous situation by throwing our discs and taking that enemy down on the other side of the fire. And this is an area where we probably want to preserve that health refill and take down the finite number of enemies, generally finite, that we have over here to the right, with some exceptions. And again, trying to preserve our robot right here, so just getting in the right position to throw these discs and take him down safely. And we can press on a little bit further before we have to retreat back and get that extra health. Just make sure we clear out all the enemies. And while we're doing this, let's bring in Blaze for what I think is the final of the combinations, the different robots you can get here in Shatterhand. Another one we probably don't recommend, but let's get some info on it just the same. Blaze?
Alright, alpha, beta, beta. The robot throws discs which bounce off of surfaces. Limit 2 on the screen at once. It can take a while for them to clear, especially if they're not hitting the target you want them to hit. It can actually be difficult to get them to hit where you want to hit, so I don't recommend this one.
Yeah, it's similar to the laser. It's just, you know, if you miss your target, then you're kind of in a bad spot. You can see we went back and grabbed the health from that station. Ooh, Hotfoot. Unless you drop down on it, they don't actually do any damage to you, which is a bit of a gimme, but we'll take it. And again, working on our next BAB so we can get that invincibility. Always a good idea to... I did not mean to destroy that. Don't worry, there will be more to get before this next boss, thankfully. Plenty of opportunities. This is another stretch, I know I sound like a broken record, but where the BAB is very useful. You'll note that the gears don't hurt our robot pal. Just us. So, in the interest of holding on to our punch upgrade for a little bit longer, try to avoid those as they mix in some more platforming fun right here by dropping in some enemies while we're in some tight, confined spots right there. Again, if you miss that power-up right there, it's okay. There's still more to be had before the boss. As long as you have one at this point, you're in good shape. Yeah, just keep repositioning your robot, keeping him out of danger. Prioritize his health above yours at this point, because, again, as we lost our punch upgrade, but that's alright. The invincibility is going to be doing all the heavy lifting. It's hard to get these boxes on this elevator. This one's coins, we can grab it. Sometimes it's better to just avoid them because you have such a limited window and you may pick up the wrong letter in that case. And now our robot's in a bad spot. You can see again how difficult this game is. Alright, Alpha will take that. And yeah, these gears will still hurt you, in case you're wondering. Not our robot, but us. Again, prioritize you're taking the damage over your robot whenever that's an option. Like maybe get in close and punch an enemy rather than having your robot deal with it. Incidentally, there is a health upgrade station. This is a grenade right here. So we can get all our health back, and there's one last letter to be had right here. Let's make sure we get a beta. And now with tips on, I think, the toughest boss in this game, I'll leave it to him. Here's Gary.
Alright, Infernon gets my award for toughest boss in Shatterhand. Invincibility is extremely recommended for this battle. You want to prioritize, if you do have the invincibility, getting hit by the gears rather than the boss or his attacks themselves. The gears only subtract 1 second per hit from your invincibility time versus the 2 that the boss damages you for, so something to keep in mind. After you've lost your invincibility, everything does the same amount of damage, so don't worry about it then. It's just 1 damage regardless. Just keep your distance though, jump, use your BAB that Blaze has recommended. Otherwise, you can try to punch after the boss jumps, and before the fire, it's a very small window to work with right there. Also note that if you're too far away from the boss when he jumps, he'll do a second jump, or if when he jumps and you move too far away, he'll do that second jump. So stay near him until he gets settled, then you can back up and avoid his fire. Always keep on the more open side too so you don't get trapped. And that's basically the strategy. Again, this guy is very tough, especially with all these gears. Good luck.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, you can see how clutch that invincibility was there. We will take him on again in the sort of a drawn-out boss rush coming up on this final stage here in a moment, but the background will be much more forgiving, just a basic room in that case. But if you were hoping that was the last level, not because you're not enjoying the game, but just because of how difficult it's been so far, we have one last stage to go here. So Mega Man, such a Mega Man thing to do right here. Just need Wily to pop out with his eyebrows, but here we are on to Area G, I suppose. So here they're mixing in electrified floors and ceilings for that matter. We got conveyor belt platforms. This part is all about timing until we can get our robot pal to help us out. You can punch him from this distance on this platform right here. You can see it. The turrets, which are firing out, have a couple different patterns they'll fire in. Make sure you duck as soon as you get down there to the bottom, and we'll start on our, what we hope to be our final BAB for this Shatterhand walkthrough here. This one's hard to avoid because once you're pinning down and trying to punch that guy, the above laser is dropping down upon you. Another punch upgrade station here, and you want to preserve it for as long as possible. If you want to hold off on getting it, unlike I accidentally did there, clear out some enemies before you pick it up. Not a bad idea. But as we continue battling through here, just note the choreography, if you will, and we'll bring in Fluff for another Fluff fact, this time about the developer of Shatterhand.
As I mentioned earlier, Shatterhand was developed by Natsume Co. Limited. I was about to say the same company behind the successful farming simulation series Harvest Moon, but that would be inaccurate. The company behind the Harvest Moon games was actually Natsume Incorporated, which was originally Natsume Co's American division before they split off in 1995 to be their own independent entity of a game developer shortly before they went on to create the Harvest Moon series in 1996 with the original, plainly titled Harvest Moon, also known as Farm Story in Japan. Getting back to Natsume Co., now known as Natsume Atari Co., it's best for being associated with the Lufia and Pocky and Rocky series.
Thank you, Fluff. Played a little Lufia. Not enough to feel confident in my pronunciation of it, in case you picked up that in my voice there, class, but not familiar with... Well, I've heard of Pocky and Rocky, I suppose. Haven't played it myself, but yeah. The Lufia or Lufia series. A little experience with that as we lost our punch upgrade, unfortunately, but you can see we have a little sweet spot right here to deal with that guy in his mech suit. But once again, letting the BAB do a lot of the heavy lifting for us, and we begin the boss rush here with the easiest of the bosses. Note we won't be going through every single one of the bosses we've already faced. We'll also be facing the most difficult of all the bosses we've already faced. 2 or 3 of them. Why couldn't they give us the Pogoborgs or whatever they were, those little hopping guys that were ridiculously easy to take down, but it's also not a proper boss rush in the sense that it's kind of spread out. Think Mega Man 3, I suppose, when they were rehashing the robot masters from Mega Man 2, which I loved. I thought that was great, but... but I digress, obviously. So not too difficult, that first guy. Obviously want to preserve our BAB robot for as long as possible. That beta, alpha, beta. Whenever possible, prioritize, once again, taking as much damage yourself versus your robot pal. As you can see, we got a healing location right there waiting for us. I'd say hold off and preserve it like we normally do, but again, that's a one-way trip we just took as we dropped down right there. I'm gonna hold off on the BAB right now until we get one that's a little bit closer to the next boss rehash. I recommend you do the same if you're already at 2 once you got to that particular power-up block. It's all about that Briggs note right here about, it's a kind of a tricky jump right there, clearing that ceiling while making that jump like we did right there. Again, we want to lure this guy over a little bit, or if you can just get those hits in. There's no timer, thankfully, in this game, so we're just going to take our time, preserving as much as of our own health as well as that of our robot. And then grab the BAB here as soon as you grab it, and then just move as quickly as possible. As we have Sword Guy right here. Gary had the proper name for him, but yeah, as you can see, not nearly as difficult without the gears, without the moving platform that we were on the first time we fought him, so you can kind of see more of Gary's strategy at play right here. And again, you can see why BAB is so good. Again, not making too much distance between ourselves and the boss when he makes that jump. That was a bad move right there. Should have gone inside, but that was another one of Gary's tips, actually. Make sure you stay on the side of the screen with more real estate, essentially, but glad to have taken him down. We're back in the gravity portion of this. If you hold down the jump button, that's when you can transition between the top and the bottom. Just be very careful that you know where you're going to land when you do make that switch right there. And again, just trying to keep our robot as healthy as possible. Granted, we just topped him off before that last boss battle, so he should be doing okay right now. And there's just too much going on right here, so I like to just kind of hurry through the more dangerous sections rather than trying to actually take out the enemies in this little corridor right here. Kind of a ridiculous jump right there, but part of the fun. The mind-bending fun right here, the physics of Shatterhand. Probably could have hit that guy from below, but won't have another chance to re-up our BAB until after this next boss fight. And it's going to be a doozy. I think you know who I'm talking about. Probably the second or third most difficult boss in this gravity guy right here. He likes to switch it up on us. Again, the key is to keep your distance and then prioritize whoever's health needs to be prioritized, I guess in this case. In our personal case, you know, you can see we're down to 3 health right now, but the BAB, the beta alpha beta robot that we preach in this game, the effects of his attacker, they're fun on this one, and he's a little worse for wear, so again, gonna try to preserve him as much as possible, see if we can focus on him dodging right there as we took the hit. That was very close. Just really trying to keep him alive for, there we go, before he got that shot off. Trying to keep him alive so we can pick up our next BAB. There's going to be a nice little stretch where there are plenty of items to pick up, and it's just, you know, it's about prioritizing what you need. And for the final boss, who is not too far off now, it is absolutely an instance of making sure that you grab that invincibility right there at the last power-up so you can maximize your time with it as you take down that boss, but we'll show you that. Yeah, those discs go a little bit crazy in the no-gravity area. Just see if we can't take out these little robots, and then once we have that opening, make our move here, and I think we go a little bit higher. Yeah, we can just disc that enemy down. Alright, so even if you have 2 right here, this is going to be another one. We can top off our beta, get some invincibility. There are 3 more after this, so don't worry about, you know, picking up one too many right here. Whatever your situation is, just know that if you have 0 of those power-up tokens right now, you are in good shape. I'm just going to use our temporary invincibility here to clear out this corridor. At least the area with the boxes. Got to be very careful of the flames there coming out of those jets, but just kind of clearing up the enemies right here as much as possible. And we'll have a health top off. Trying to preserve our super punch as well right here. As much as we can. Alright, so, well, take down that thing there. Alright. So we have, there's not 3 up top, but there's 1 right here. So get the B, and then we'll top off our health. And then between the remaining 3 blocks, there will be 2 more. So we can grab an alpha and a beta, and want to keep that inside one as our last one, so we get just that extra split second of invincibility, as you can see right there. And then quickly teleport to this boss. The final boss here in Shatterhand. Invincibility is going to make a big difference, but Gary, take us home.
Boss beater. Alright, yeah, General Grover. That is not a typo, that is the man's name. That's what it says on his driver's license, apparently, so make the most of your invincibility. There's no excuse to not have invincibility during this fight. Get as many hits in as you can. With that in mind, it's not too difficult. You'll definitely have softened him up a decent amount. You should be good on health at this point as well, if you've managed it like the professor recommended. And with normal attacks, just get close, duck and punch, and then jump when the boss crouches, because you know he's about to launch at you, and just repeat this process. Not too difficult after that last guy in particular, but take him down, and you have beaten Shatterhand. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Gary. Excellent work today with some challenging bosses, and I love just Steve Herman getting in there. He knows how hard this game was. He's over it. Just going to the body, throwing those last punches, taking down Grover there, General Grover. And yeah, standing in, I guess, what would hurt us during the battle, but we took him down so quickly he only had time to make that one hole in the floor there. No urgency, but very Mega Man here as well as, you know, the base, Wily's base, crumbling all around us. And there you go, alright. I actually forgot he did that at the end, yeah. It's shameless. As long as they're pulling from good games, right? Oftentimes you'll get a good game, and this was certainly that, but a well-earned victory. This looks very much like the end of Bionic Commando when all your comrades are there cheering you on. Kind of like Lad and Super Joe there in the foreground. Man, what's his arm routine? That's what I want to know after all this. Gotta get Fluff to... Oh right, the bionic arms, that's his routine. Losing his arms and having those implanted right there. There you go, I'd be smiling too if I just beat this game, and I am, class. Well, there you go. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to enroll in this class. We do one of these classes every single week. We'd love to have you enrolled. Also, click that like button if you don't mind. It really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment. Have you played Shatterhand before? Were you in the dark on this very underrated, or under-known, I suppose, action platforming gem for the NES? That's how I would describe it. Thank you very much to those who requested it, mentioned it, put it on our radar, and eventually on our curriculum. This one took a lot of work, I have to say, hence the rating at the start, but not an easy game, but a very satisfying victory, to be sure. But one more time, a big thanks to all my TAs, Gary with the Boss Beaters, Blaze certainly by going down the list and showing us the wonder of BAB Robot, and Fluff with all the facts covered today. That is our time for this week, class. Thank you so much for attending this one. We'll see you next week in the same spot for next week's class, right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.